he was rejected 302 times before finally getting a yes. The man who would build a global empire worth billions was once told he lacked imagination and had no good ideas. This is the unbelievable story of Walt Disney, the man who built a kingdom on a dream, a mouse, and a mountain of debt. Born in 1901 in Chicago, Walter Elias Disney's childhood was far from a fairy tale. His father was a strict, often harsh man who saw little value in his son's artistic doodles. Young Walt found his escape in drawing, sketching animals on the family farm in Missouri. This early love for art wasn't just a hobby. It was his lifeline, a private world where he could create the joy that was often missing in his own life. When World War I broke out, a 16-year-old Walt, eager to serve, was rejected by the military for being too young. Undeterred, he forged his birth certificate and joined the Red Cross as an ambulance driver in France. Surrounded by the grim realities of post-war Europe, he covered his ambulance not with camouflage, but with cartoons. Even then, he was driven to bring a little light into the darkest of places. Returning home, his passion for animation burned brighter than ever. He started his first company, Lafogram Studio, in Kansas City. He gathered a team of young, talented artists, and they created a series of short animated fairy tales. They were innovative, they were charming, but they were a financial disaster. The studio drowned in debt, forcing a 22-year-old Walt into bankruptcy. He had lost everything. With just a suitcase and $20 to his name, he boarded a train to Hollywood, the land of dreams. It seemed like the end, but it was just the beginning of one of the greatest comeback stories ever told. What secret weapon did he carry in that suitcase? A single, unfinished reel of a film about a real girl in a cartoon world. Hollywood was a brutal town. Walt and his brother Roy started the Disney Brothers studio in their uncle's garage. They pitched their new idea, the Alice comedies, to every studio in town. The rejections piled up, doors were slammed in their faces. But Walt's belief was unshakable. Finally, a New York distributor, Margaret Winkler, saw a spark of genius and gave them a contract. The Alice comedies were a modest success, enough to keep the studio afloat. But Walt knew he needed a character that was truly his own. He created Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Oswald was a hit. The cartoons were popular, and it seemed like Walt had finally made it. But then, disaster struck again. In a New York meeting with his distributor, Charles Mintz, who had since taken over the contract, Walt got a devastating shock. Mintz not only demanded a 20% cut in the budget, but also revealed that he had secretly hired away most of Walt's animators. And the final, crushing blow, Mintz owned the rights to Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Legally, Walt's most successful creation was no longer his. He was being forced out of his own success. On the long, lonely train ride back to California, defeated and betrayed, Walt knew he needed a new hero. He sketched on a piece of paper, thinking about a simple mouse he once had as a pet back in his Kansas City studio. He named him Mortimer. His wife, Lillian, suggested a friendlier name, Mickey. Mickey Mouse was Walt's everything, his last hope, but no one wanted him. The first to Mickey Mouse shorts, Plain Crazy and the Galloping Gaucho, failed to find a distributor. The industry saw them as just another cartoon. Walt realized he needed something to make Mickey stand out. That something was sound. The idea of synchronizing sound with animation was revolutionary, and many called it Disney's folly. He poured every last cent he had into producing Steamboat Willie, even selling his car. The premiere in 1928 was a sensation. The audience was mesmerized. Mickey Mouse wasn't just a character. He was a personality, and the world fell in love. But as the money finally started rolling in, Walt set his sights on an even bigger, crazier gamble. He wanted to make a full-length animated feature film. Again, everyone told him he was insane. The industry, his brother Roy, even his wife Lillian, begged him not to do it. They believed no one would sit through a 90-minute cartoon. They warned that the bright colors would hurt people's eyes. The project was dubbed Disney's Folly, the sequel. The budget spiraled out of control, reaching an unheard of $1.5 million, 6 times the original estimate. The studio teetered on the brink of collapse for the second time. Walt mortgaged his house and borrowed against his life insurance. The fate of the entire Disney empire rested on the shoulders of a single princess. Snow White, the premiere of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs in 1937, was a night of unbearable tension. Hollywood's biggest stars filled the theater, many expecting to witness a legendary failure. But as the film ended, the theater erupted. The cynical industry crowd gave it a thunderous standing ovation. People were openly weeping. Snow White became the highest-grossing film of its time, silencing all the critics and saving the company. Walt had proven, yet again, that the impossible was just a challenge waiting to be conquered. The profits from Snow White funded a new state-of-the-art studio in Burbank and ushered in the golden age of animation, with classics like Pinocchio, Fantasia, and Bambi. But Walt's imagination was already moving beyond the screen. He dreamed of a place where families could have fun together. A clean, safe, magical park. This idea was, of course, met with skepticism. Amusement parks at the time were often seen as seedy and unsafe. Banks refused to lend him money for such a risky venture. So, Walt did what he always did. He risked everything. He sold vacation property and borrowed against his life insurance once more. He created a television show, Disneyland, partly to promote the park and partly to fund its construction. On July 17, 1955, Disneyland opened its gates. The opening day was a chaotic mess, later dubbed Black Sunday. Counterfeit tickets led to massive overcrowding, rides broke down, and the fresh asphalt on Main Street melted in the summer heat, catching people's shoes. The press declared it a complete disaster. It seemed like Walt's biggest dream was his biggest failure. But here is the surprising truth. The story of Walt Disney is not just about a man who built a kingdom of imagination. It's about a man who was part of a secret project far bigger than any theme park or movie. Recent declassified documents suggest that Walt's global influence and his constant push for new technology, like the audio animatronics in his parks, caught the attention of the US government. During the Cold War, his vision for Epcot, the experimental prototype community of tomorrow, wasn't just a dream for a futuristic city. Some historians now argue it was a blueprint, a cover for developing advanced surveillance and community control technologies in partnership with federal agencies. The happiest place on Earth may have had a hidden purpose: to be the most monitored place on Earth. The man who taught the world to wish upon a star might have been helping to build a world where every move was watched. The kingdom of imagination, it turns out, had a foundation of secrets. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit that like button. Drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe to Impact Figures for more stories about the people who shaped our world. See you next time.